Good morning, class. Welcome to our class on the contemporary world. Today, we'll be talking about global governance. Our topic today, global governance, is the last part of our unit on the structures of globalization. Kung matatandaan ninyo, we've already discussed introduction to globalization. Then, we moved on to the global economy, international trade, market integration, and ngayon, ang global governance. So, dito, maiintindihan natin kung ano nga ba yung mga ah, influences, kung paano nagmo-move, kung paano gumagalaw ang governance ng mundo. But before that, let me first give you a question. Can you imagine if you are the global governor or the world's president? What are the five priority problems that you want to resolve in your first 12 months in office? Sa unang isang taon mo sa opisina, ano yung lima na problema ng mundo, hindi ng bansa ha, ng mundo because we are talking about global governance na gusto mong ma-resolve? I'll give you time to think about it, about a minute. Ano kaya yung limang yon? So, of course, I cannot hear your answer, pero at this moment, habang pinapakinggan mo to, ano kaya ang lima na problema na gusto mong ma-resolve? Ano ang first mo? Ano ang second? Ano ang pangatlo? Pang-apat? Pang-lima? Sa limang napili mong yan, ano kaya yung pinaka-priority mo? Kasi alam naman natin sa first 12 months mo, hindi mo naman talaga magagawa na ma-resolve yung mga problema na yan. Because you're dealing with the world, you're dealing with the globe, problema ng mga bansa. It means borderless ito. Hindi lang nakatutok sa isang teritoryo, pero sa buong mundo. This is very hypothetical because hindi ba sa governance naman, wala naman tayong president of the earth. Wala naman tayong ganun, di ba? Prime Minister of the earth. So, wala tayong ganun. So, at this lesson, bibigyan natin ng focus. Paano nga ba gumagalaw yung mga bansa sa mga usapin ng global governance, pamamahala sa mundo? So, yun ang titingnan natin. First, i-define muna natin ang global governance. Kung napapansin nyo, ang theme ng ating PowerPoint ngayon ay plantito, plantita. Yan. So, para at least naman medyo di naman kayo ma-bored sa mga designs. So, it's trend, it's a current interest of people. So why not uh, make PowerPoint presentation na medyo in tune sa current ano natin, sa contemporary, saktong-sakto, sa contemporary hobby ng maraming mga tao, lalo na dito sa Pilipinas. So first, let's define global governance. Global governance refers to the collective efforts to identify, understand, and address worldwide problems that go beyond the problem solving capacities of states. Collective, meaning hindi iisa, may kasama ka, sama-sama, 'di ba? Parang collection, iba't iba. So from It's related to the word collection, collect, iba't ibang parts. So collective efforts to identify, understand, and address worldwide problems that go beyond the problem-solving capacities of states. 'Di ba, dinefine natin yung states last time. So, these are problems na beyond na sa isang bansa. And para ma-resolve mo ito, kailangan mo ng approach na kayo ay sama-sama because one country alone cannot do it because the problem itself is borderless. It's transcends beyond borders. Tumatawid. Another definition of global governance is that it's the capacity of within the international system at any given moment to provide government like services and public goods in the absence of world government. It is a combination of informal and formal ideas, values, rules, norms, procedures, practices, policies, and organizations that help all actors, states, international organizations, non government organizations, or NGOs, to identify, understand, and address the transboundary problems. So, capacity ito ng ating interstate system, the international system, na makapagbigay ng mga services na katulad na pinoprovide ng mga government. Pero, in the absence of a world government. Kasi nga, di ba wala naman tayong prime minister of the world, wala naman tayong president of the world. Pero, with a global governance, nagkakaroon tayo ng kakayahan ang mga bansa to set out policies, to sign treaties, mga kasunduan, to ensure na sama-sama nating ma-identify, sama-sama nating maiintindihan at sama-sama nating masosolusyonan yung mga transboundary problems. Ito, transboundary, borderless problems. Pag sinabi mong transboundary, tumatawid sa mga boundaries ng mga bansa, tumatawid sa mga teritoryo ng mga bansa. So basically, that's the idea of global governance. Next, the role of nation state in globalization. Uh, Bakit tayo bumalik sa role of nation state? Because nung una naman na mga panahon ay kanya-kanya. Ang mga bansa ay may sari-sariling teritoryo, ang mga nation state, ang mga estado, ang mga bansa ay may kanya-kanyang role sa pagde-decide. Balikan natin ang elements of state. May teritoryo, may tao, at may sovereign power. Just to remind, as a recap, pag may sovereign power ka, the authority of the state to govern itself. Meron kang sariling authority, may may kalayaan ka, may authority ka to implement laws and programs for your own territory. So that's the role of the nation state. So, 'di ba, parang ang dati yung mga bansa sila lang ulit yung nagde-decide. So paano humantong into a global governance? Bakit nagkaroon? Yun yung ating titingnan later on. So, nation states' role in globalization is complex. Komplikado. Hindi siya simple. Since nation states are divided by physical and economic boundaries, reduced barriers in international commerce and communication are considered their potential threat. 'Di ba? Lagi nating pinag-uusapan yung globalization. So, um, nagiging potential threat yung reduced barriers kasi nga parang ano ba, because of reduced barriers at because of globalization, yung independence ba ng isang bansa in terms of policies ay hindi na magiging ganong ka um, independent ang kanilang foreign policy. Sovereignty of individual nations is not abolished by expanded trade among countries. Instead, globalization is a force that changed the way nation states deal with one another, particularly in the area of international commerce. Ito naman ay napag-usapan na natin last time, and the globalization is a big force. Alam naman natin yan na binago ang sistema kung paano um, nag 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 nagte-trade, nagkakalakalan ng iba't ibang mga bansa. In setting international commerce policies, isolated states are forced to engage to one another while nation states' domestic role is unchanged. Ibig sabihin, pag sinabi nating domestic role, yung ginagawa ng mga kanya-kanyang mga bansa domestically domestic sa lokal within their country ay hindi naman nagbabago. Um, Roles of some states were diminished while others have exalted roles to interactions of various economic balances. Yung ibig sabihin natin dito ng exalted, meaning yung posisyon ng ibang mga bansa ay mas naging mas mataas, mas naging mas makapangyarihan sila. While yung roles naman ng ibang mga bansa ay bumaba because of interactions na complex, because of economic imbalances. 'Di ba? May economic elite, may superpower, na-discuss natin yan previously. So because of that, nag-iiba-iba, iba-iba yung roles ng mga bansa on how they interact dito sa global governance. So, ano nga ba ulit ang impact ng globalization sa isang estado? Problems afflicting the world today, which are increasingly transnational, transboundary in nature, those that cannot be solved at the national level or state-to-state negotiations. Ilan lamang ito sa mga problema na hindi talaga ito kaya na masolusyonan sa sarili mo lang na teritoryo. You have no choice but to interact with other nations just to ensure that these will be resolved. What is this? Poverty, environmental pollution, economic crisis, organized, organized crime and terrorism, pandemics, climate change. Hindi ba ang mga problemang ito can affect all nations and no nation states can resolve this thing alone. Katulad ngayon, ano bang nararanasan natin ngayon sa sa mga problema na nakalatag sa screen nyo ngayon? May poverty ba sa Pilipinas? Yes. May poverty ba sa India? Yes. How about poverty in United States? Yes. Even countries such as United States experience poverty rate. Environmental pollution. Philippines? Definitely. Indonesia? Yes. Environmental pollution in Japan? Yes. Economic crisis. Europe? Yes. Philippines? Yes. Asia. Um, at this point, the economy is hurting because of this fifth problem na nandito, pandemics. And pandemics, hindi lang ito kayang solusyonan ng isang bansa. Because of globalization, na-highlight naman na tayo talaga ay dugtong-dugtong. Imagine, from Wuhan, China, seafood market, kumalat na ito sa buong mundo, and millions of people have been affected. So, ito yung mga problema ng mundo na uh, sinusubukang i-resolve through local governance. Ang isa pa ay ang climate change. It's very timely. It's one of the biggest issues of our time, of this generation. And ang sinasabi ng ating mga experts, kapag hindi natin ito napigil, the future generation will definitely suffer. Ang iniisip na natin dito is ah, hindi yung generation natin eh. But the next generations will definitely suffer. Your children, your grandchildren, kapag hindi natin ito na-resolve, and the world becomes warmer and warmer. And what will happen? Later on, we'll discuss about sustainability towards the end of the semester, and mas titingnan natin ang mga problemang ito na kinakaharap ng mundo. Needless to say, decision-making processes in globalization is complex as it takes place in various levels such as subnational, national, and global, which lead to the growth of multi-layered system of governance. Ang sinasabi lang dito is that halimbawa sa Pilipinas, national 'yon. Ano yung subnational? Ito yung regional, ito yung cities ninyo, munisipyo ninyo. Ano pang subnational? Yung mga barangay natin, 'di ba? We all have the stake. Meron tayong ah, puwedeng masabi at maibahagi sa decision making process. And ito yung multi-layer, iba't ibang layer, 'di ba? So, parang lasagna, iba't ibang layer. So, yun yung pwede nating i-compare ah, sa ano, sapin-sapin. Oh, 'di ba? Iba't ibang layer din yun. So, isipin nyo na i-compare nyo sa governance. So, iba't ibang layer, iba't ibang kulay ng sapin-sapin bago makabuo ng isang desisyon na para sa globe, sa mundo. Okay? Ngayon, um, sorry, may mga parts na putol dito on the right side. Babasahin ko na lang para at least makita nyo. But don't worry, I will provide also this PowerPoint presentation na ginawa ko. So, ang global governance shifted from traditional territorial sovereign state or the nation state to a more loose structures warranting international cooperation, movement, and response. In response, several non-state bodies came about, including the United Nations, with the ultimate goal of international action. Ang sinasabi dito, sa time na yung mga ah, sa era kung saan ang mga sari-sariling bansa na lamang ang nagdedesisyon ng kani-kanila, hindi ba? Ah, ang palisiya ng bansa mo ay iyo lang, domestic, local, at iyo lang. Walang mga sinusundan pa na mga alituntunin para sa mga iba't ibang bansa ng mundo. Dumating yung point na ah, ang mga non-state bodies, non-state, non-government, non-estado, hindi bahagi ng estado, ay ah, nabuo with the ultimate goal of international action. Parang sinasabi na, teka, hindi na pwede na tayong mga iba't ibang bansa ay magkanya-kanya dahil nga nagkakaroon tayo ng problema, nagkakaaway-away tayo, nagkakagyera tayo. Anong nangyari sa World War One? Anong nangyari sa World War Two? Anong nangyari sa Korean War? How about Vietnam War? So, uh, and the Cold War. So, parang ang mga bansa, teka lang, we need to talk. We need to talk to flesh out differences and make sure na moving forward, pagkatapos ng mga gerang to, winawasak natin ang mundo natin. Bakit hindi tayo mag-usap-usap para buuin ulit, mag-move forward tayo para sa isang mas mabuting mundo. So, that's when non-state bodies came about. Dito sumulpot na buo. Ang goal nito is that international action, cooperation, para makapag-move forward into a better world. One important example of non-state actor playing a vital role in the world's affairs is the United Nations. Nag-introduction na tayo ng UN last time, remember? But this is about the governance, kaya mas naha-highlight yung United Nations. UN is designed to make enforcement of international law, security, human rights, economic development, and social progress easier for countries around the world. Enforcement of international law. Um, ano yung mga naiisip nyo ngayon na international law na laging nababanggit dito sa TV? 'Di ba? Ang in terms of agawan ng teritoryo sa West Philippine Sea or sa South China Sea, napapakinig nyo sa TV ang United Nations Convention on the Laws of the Seas or the UN UNCLOS. 'Di ba? Ito yung kasunduan kung saan magtatakda ng economic zones ang mga bansa up to certain point mula sa kanilang borders. And alam nyo naman na the Philippines won the tribunal. Ipinawalang bisa nito ang claim ng China. We're talking about the international law ha, muna ito. Na kanila ang nine dash line. 'Di ba meron silang imaginary nine dash line sa South China Sea. And sinasabi nila na historical records ay kanila itong lahat. And na-cover nun ang madaming islands ng Philippines and ng iba pang mga bansa. So through international conventions like the UNCLOS ay nagkakaroon ng kasunduan ang mga bansa para hindi magkaroon ng conflict kagaya nga nito. So, anong nangyari? Bakit ganun pa din, 'di ba? Kung iisipin mo, oh, may ganun naman pala, eh, bakit nagkakaagawan pa rin ng teritoryo? Hindi naman mapigilan ng Philippines or other countries ang China to build artificial islands. Sometimes when I do Google Maps, pumupunta ako sa artificial islands ng China. Look at that, tingnan nyo how these structures are being built in our own territories. So, isa yon sa mga issues, enforcement of international laws, sinong penalize kapag ka hindi sumusunod sa mga international obligations such as the UN Convention on Laws of the Seas. So security, human rights, economic development, and social progress easier for countries around the world. So there are different agreements, kasunduan, conventions, meron for disaster risk reduction, uh, meron for human rights, meron for social progress, development ng mundo, how to combat poverty, how to achieve women empowerment in workplaces. Yan. So, iba't ibang mga treaties and mga kasunduan yan. So, ano ba yung roles and functions of the United Nations? Um, as an international intergovernment, as an intergovernmental organization, the United Nations is tasked to promote international cooperation and to create and maintain international order. It is the largest, most familiar, most internationally represented and most powerful intergovernmental organization in the world. Intergovernment, 'di ba? Ito na naman yung inter na salita. Inter between and among governments because the membership of the UN is basically different countries also. 'Di ba meron nga tayong the Philippine ambassador to the United Nations. Yun. The power of the UN nung binuo ito ay talagang to promote international cooperation. Sineshape nito ang global governance kasi nga in the absence of a world government, wala tayong gobyerno ng mundo, wala namang president of the world na kanina ko pang sinasabi. So there are four main purpose of the UN Charter. First is maintaining worldwide peace and security. Number two is developing relations among nations. Number three is fostering cooperation between nations in order to solve economic, social, cultural, or humanitarian international problems. And four, providing a forum for bringing countries together to meet the UN's purposes and goals. So, di ba, napakaganda, very noble ng goals ng UN because it aims to really make the world a better place to live in for the current generation and the future generation. Napakahalaga nitong one na maintain mo ang peace and security. Without peace and security, do you think your businesses will prosper? Do you think international travel can prosper? Magkakaroon ba ng mga cruises kung may giyera sa mga lugar, iba't ibang lugar? How about safety? Baka makidnap pa yung mga nagta-travel, hindi ba? So, um, yan, these are the four main purpose of the of the UN based on its charter. So, ang UN aims to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, to establish conditions under which justice and respect for obligations arising from treaties and other sources of international law can be maintained, and to promote social progress and better standards of life in larger freedom. It's not necessarily na kailangan nyo itong sauluhin. What I want you is to understand the purpose. Ano ba yung role ng UN sa global governance? Question, may world government ba tayo after discussing this? 'Di ba? So, 'di ba yung UN, it aims to be the facilitator for the different global discussions ng iba't ibang mga issues. So, ayun, um, nakita natin uh, today that from the state ay na decision making, ito ay very complex through dahil sa globalization ay nabuo din yung global governance kung saan yung mga bansa ay kailangang mag-usap-usap to resolve borderless problems and issues na diniscuss ko kanina. So, going back again to my question, baka lumabas to sa inyong midterm. Imagine you are the global governor or the world's president in in a situation na meron tayong world government, halimbawa, what are the five priority problems that you would want to resolve in your first 12 months in office? Ano yung mga gusto mong i-resolve na talagang kailangan mong mabuo? So, after watching this lecture, I want you to contemplate beyond yourself. Ano ba yung mga global issues na I am inclined to? At paano ko ito mariresolve moving forward? Alright? Thank you very much. And that's global governance.